In May 2007, some villagers reported that there were some tomb robbers in Dahekou village in Yichang County, Shanxi province. When the Yichang County authorities reached the site, they found that tomb robbers had dug in a wheat field a dozen holes surrounded by pottery shards. The archaeologists began investigating a 500 square meter area and found mixed layers of earth at a depth of 5 meters. When ancient people dug a pit for a tomb, they removed both previously disturbed earth and undisturbed earth. A mixture of the two kinds of earth will be then used to refill the pit. This provides an important clue to the presence of ancient tombs. Later, more layers of mixed earth were discovered at a depth of 10 meters underground in some places. Wang Yizhe, an experienced archaeologist from Yichang, speculated that it must be an ancient graveyard. Dahekou village is located about 6 kilometers from the county seat of Yichang County, where the Hui River and a tributary merge. Humans have lived in the area for thousands of years. In surveys conducted in 1982 and 1986, archaeologists found many cultural artifacts from the Eastern Zhou and Han dynasties. But archaeologists have never imagined that there was an ancient graveyard less than 500 meters from Dahekou village. Yichang County reported the discovery to higher authorities about the ancient graveyard long coveted by tomb robbers. Xie Yaoting, then deputy director of the Shanxi Institute of Archaeology, set off for Dahekou village when he heard the news. Xie graduated from Jilin University with a PhD degree in archaeology. He was the team leader of the investigation. A preliminary survey showed that the graveyard was from the Western Zhou dynasty to the spring and autumn period and included tombs and chariot pits. In the Western Zhou dynasty, Yichang belonged to the state of Jin. The tomb of a Marquis of Jin was found in Chu village in 1978, about 60 kilometers from Dahekou village. The royal graveyard of the state of Peng was found in Hongshui in Jiang County, about 20 kilometers away from Dahekou village. Those two large burial sites were located with a panoramic view of water and mountains. But this site was in a rugged area with gullies on its east and west sides. Previous experience of the team indicated that this would not be an impressive tomb. On the southeast of the site, archaeologists found the largest tomb. The entrance to the tomb was 30 centimeters deep and about 4 meters by 3 meters. The team was puzzled by the startling holes at the 4 corners of the entrance and anxious to find out who was buried there. When the team removed the fill earth down to the cover of the outer coffin, they found 11 niches on the surrounding walls containing lacquer wooden figurines and porcelain and pottery articles. The archaeologists had never before seen so many niches, even full of various artifacts in a Western Zhou tomb. The tomb occupant had to be an important figure to have so many precious burial objects. Then came another surprise. The archaeologists found a wooden lacquered shield, 2 1-meter-high wooden lacquered figurines, and lacquerware placed around the figurines, all of them intact after 3,000 years. This was the first time that lacquer wooden figurines had been found intact in a Western Zhou tomb. This find made the team immediately aware of the importance of the tomb.
漆木器一般的在比较干燥的环境下，比如说沙漠地带，或者是比较潮湿的环境下，容易保留下来。比如说南方的马王堆墓葬，那么在我们北方地区呢，由于这个水位的忽高忽低，那么这些漆木器呢很难被完整的保留下来。
Ancient people believed that the afterlife of the deceased should be the same as their life before they died, so their servants were buried with their possessions. This was the beginning of human sacrifice in China, which reached its height in the Shang dynasty. Later, human sacrifice was largely abandoned as humans were replaced by pottery figurines. The substitution of pottery figurines for human sacrifice is a sign of the progress of human civilization. Several days later, a large number of bronze articles, along with some beautiful porcelain and pottery ware, were unearthed. Some objects had been smashed to pieces when the tomb collapsed. The tomb chamber was too small for any advanced instruments or equipment. Archaeologists removed the earth and lifted the coffin lid with great care. After clearing away the remains of the coffin, the body of the deceased finally appeared. Three millennia had turned both the coffin and the body to dust, but it could be discerned that the body was laid on its back with the head pointing west. He had worn many jade ornaments, but they had become buried deep in the earth. Many bronzes were placed by his head. The large number of weapons leads archaeologists to speculate that the deceased was a high-ranking male noble from the Western Zhou dynasty. While cleaning up the tomb, the team found a small pit in the lower part of the tomb chamber containing the skeleton of a dog.
在1号墓葬的墓底呢，发现有一个腰坑。那么这个腰坑里面呢，发现有一只寻狗。这个狗呢，年龄比较小，我们一般叫它幼狗。那么这个狗呢，是当时埋葬人之前用来祭奠的一种习俗。
It took 8 months to complete excavation of tomb number 1. The result was a 10-meter deep shaft that was small at the top and large at the bottom. More funeral objects were unearthed than from the previously excavated tomb of a Jin Marquis. The funeral objects represent all aspects of the life of the deceased, reflecting his importance in life. Now the experts want to know who he is. There were 24 three-legged bronze vessels called ding and 9 bronze pots with handles called gui found in tomb number 1. In the Western Zhou dynasty, an emperor could only be buried with 9 ding and 7 gui. Obviously, this tomb did not follow the Zhou rites. The expert tried to find who the occupant was from the inscriptions on the bronzeware. Xie and his team decided to start with the bronze items. As expected, they found an inscription inside the lid of one that read, "Cast in memory of King of Wei for his contribution of horses, jade, and bronze." Xie believes that the King of Wei was a ruler of Wei who sent horses and bronze to the ruler of Ba. To commemorate this kindness, the ruler of Ba had this bronze cast. The King of Wei was a vassal king in the Zhou dynasty. Although it is difficult to determine which king he was, the inscription clearly shows a relationship between Wei and Ba. Xie speculates that many valuable artifacts indicate that the person buried in the tomb had a high social status, probably the equivalent of a monarch. Xie's belief prompted a great deal of suspicions and guesses. The tomb of a Marquis of Jin has already been discovered on the former Jin territory, but the tomb of Tang Marquis Shu Yu, founder of the state of Jin, has not been found yet. Some of the experts believe this may be it. The records of the historian contain a story about Jin. About 1000 BC, the young King Cheng of Zhou and his younger brother Shu Yu were playing under a tree. Suddenly, the king presented a leaf from a Tang tree to Shu Yu and told him he was now a Tang Marquis. Later, King Cheng actually made his younger brother the ruler of Tang. Tang was located east of the Yellow River and the Fengshui River, now the area around Linfen, Yicheng, Chuwo, and Xiangfen. The native Xia people were joined by various different ethnic groups. Shu Yu became known as Tang Shu Yu after becoming the ruler of Tang. His son Xie changed the name of the state to Jin, whose capital was Yi. The ancient state of Jin was 10 kilometers southwest of today's Dahekou village. Western Zhou dynasty tombs were mainly located northeast or northwest of a city. The Dahekou graveyard was north of the location of Yi. The graveyard probably belonged to the state of Jin, since only the people of Jin were buried in its territory. Although the deceased in the tomb hasn't been identified, it is hard to imagine that the founder of a dynasty would be buried in a tomb much smaller than the tombs of other Jin rulers. Archaeologists found that Tomb 1 was the largest in the graveyard, but there is no sign that this is the tomb of Tang Shu Yu. His experience told Xie this was probably not the tomb of Tang Shuyu. Xie believed that the mention of the state of Ba was the key. A record of relations between Ba and Jin could help confirm the tomb occupant's identity. Tomb number 2, located 50 meters north of Tomb 1, was also an east-west vertical shaft. The first funeral objects recovered were several pieces of bronzeware. Then pieces of a jade necklace were found in the coffin. The silk thread holding the pieces together was long gone, as were the remains of the body. The deceased from tomb number 2 was also laid out straight on his back, with the head pointing west. The funeral objects and the jade necklace suggest that she was a woman. The scale of the tomb and the 2 coffins inside the outer one indicate that she was equivalent to the wife of a monarch. Because of the proximity of tombs number 1 and 2 and the smaller tombs surrounding them, the archaeologists boldly speculate that the persons buried there were husband and wife. But it was the custom in the Zhou dynasty for couples to be buried together in the same tomb. There was no wife in tomb number 1 and no husband in tomb number 2, leading Xie to suspect that they were not Zhou dynasty tombs. After the funeral objects were removed from the tomb one by one and the site given a preliminary cleanup, a pit was discovered under the debris from the coffin. The pit contained the remains of a dog. There were fewer funeral objects in tomb number 2 than in number 1. Conditions in the 2 tombs indicate that number 2 was created at least 90 years later than tomb number 1. The 2 tombs do not contain the remains of a husband and wife. The woman buried in number 2 was the wife of a much later monarch. Examination of the 2 tombs showed similar funnel-like shafts in the earth, similar position of the bodies, and pits with a dog buried in them. One big difference was that tomb number 1 had holes on the 4 corners of the tomb entrance. The manner of the burials was not that of Zhou nobles. The tomb of a Marquis of Jin in Chuchun village is also a shaft tomb, but his wife was buried with him, with both their heads pointing north. These 2 tombs obviously don't resemble a typical Jin burial. Xie confirmed that it was not a Jin graveyard. Xie was confronted with one mystery after another. The graveyard was located in Jin territory, but it was not the graveyard of people from Jin. Moreover, tombs number 1 and 2 belonged to a Western dynasty monarch and a monarch's wife, but they were not from the same generation. Now Xie needed to figure out who they were. Xie found an inscription inside a bronze steamer in tomb number 2 that includes the word Ba, but the meaning here is not clear. The experts want to determine the connection between the Dahekou graveyard and this word Ba. Xie looked for answers in records of other digs. He found that a bronze artifact from the tomb of a Marquis of Jin in 1978 mentioned Ba in two different contexts. In collection of inscriptions of bronzes of the Yin and Zhou dynasties, one bronze has an inscription including the word Ba. Xie believes that the Ba Bo in the inscriptions must refer to a vassal king, making the graveyard at Dahekou most likely that of a vassal state of the Western Zhou dynasty.
结合这些传世的文献和墓葬里面的发现，我们推测这里头有可能就是霸族或者是霸国的所在地。
But historical records do not mention it among the over 160 vassal states set up during the Zhou dynasty of 3,000 years ago. In fact, no historical documents mention it. Even more puzzling is how a Western Zhou vassal state appeared within Jin territory, which was itself a Western Zhou vassal state. Xie has participated in many important excavations at Jin sites over the past 20-odd years. But deciphering this complicated and mysterious graveyard has him at wit's end. After finishing work on tombs number 1 and 2, the team examined some of the smaller tombs. They had fewer burial objects, but otherwise were quite similar in style to the 2 large tombs. Archaeologists speculated that if the Dahekou graveyard was that of a vassal state, the smaller tombs must be those of ordinary people. They continued digging to confirm this. Tombs in the form of a vertical shaft with a small entrance opening up to a large chamber with the head of the body facing west and a pit at the bottom of the tomb were not typical of the state of Zhou. The archaeologists hope that further excavation will help them solve the mysteries surrounding the graveyard. See what they uncover in Part 2 of National Treasures.